I think that what I hear is a northern sense of humour and a northern lack of sentimentality and a robust approach to life.
If you knew anything about Theatre Royal, you'd know they were a bunch of outlaws and renegades, and my mum was similar to that, and so she probably knew they were kindred spirits. My mum came to write A Taste of Honey because she loved to read, she loved to write, she kept failing her 11 plus. They went to the pictures every Saturday, saw movies where nobody spoke like the people she saw around her. Nobody looked like the people she saw around her.
I suppose, you know, when I think about women in the 1950s, you think about them being very sort of buttoned up, stay at home, husbands going out to work, perfect housewives, perfect mothers. And it's almost as if Helen is bursting out of everything, bursting out of her clothes, out of, you know, her sexuality, completely out of time.
The themes of the play are really quite radical for the time. Shelagh Delaney offers a number of radical representations, a number of themes which would have been very controversial. So in the first instance you have a family which we'd probably now describe as living on the margins. They're disenfranchised, they're living on the edges, in poverty. And then you have the representation of single parentdom, this creation of alternative family structures, and then you have the mixed race relationship, which would have been really, really controversial at the time.
Shelagh Delaney's written something that's really speaking from the heart of an experience. I think she's articulated what it's like to be an adolescent in Salford, and we're finding every day that we're, you know, discovering more and more layers to these characters.
I think it's interesting that Shelagh Delaney decided to send the play to Joan Littlewood. I think Littlewood was very outspoken. There'd been quite a lot of press about the company in the paper, and she might have known about Joan Littlewood because of the connection to Salford, which is where the theatre workshop had been based. She might have known that she worked with untrained people, because she really wrote asking for advice and criticism.
She was probably also aware of the fact that most theatres were just putting on the same old stuff over and over and over again, and Theatre Royal were reinterpreting old stuff and looking for new stuff, so in a way it's an obvious choice.
And when Littlewood received the play, it immediately spoke to her, particularly the use of language, this very quick, sharp, witty banter that A Taste of Honey relies on, and the story of Delaney herself.
I mean, I think it was a mutually beneficial relationship, and I think that Joan, being an incredible director and in being incredibly good at pulling people together, would have seen the talent, you know.
Joan Littlewood is working class, which is very unusual in the theatre of the time. She's a woman, which is also, it's unusual to be a woman director. There are lots of women writers in the 1950s. There aren't many directors leading a company.
Between 1953 and 1963, Joan Littlewood produced an amazing array of productions, ranging from work that was offering a radical reinterpretation of the classics. So she was doing things like Richard II, Arden of Faversham. Then she moved into this period where she was working with new writers.
She's the one person who has kind of stood up there with George Devine, with Peter Hall, with what was going on generally in the building a new kind of theatre. I think A Taste of Honey really stands out in British theatre at the time because it's real, it's very fresh, the language feels very authentic.
And this is very much a working class play, and its issues are based in working class values and the values of women's liberation, I think. And people still talk about women in the same terms they talked about these two characters 50 years ago.
It's interesting that, you know, I mean, I think obviously 58, we were much further backward in our way of thinking, but I don't think we've come as far as perhaps Shelagh Delaney might have hoped we had.